What's going on, guys? Alex Tex Kate here. Today we are going to talk about building a competition belt setup. We will touch a little bit on your kind of higher end setup that'll be a little bit more costly, and we will also go over setting up a budget competition belt, a way that will get you out to your first match safely, efficiently, and then you can always build up from there. So, to get started, we will start with your belt. The majority of us use a two-part belt, which is going to have a Velcro inner and then a belt like this that has the opposite end of the Velcro to stick to. Per USPSA rules, your belt must go through the loops on your pants. Now, if you're using a two-piece belt, your inner belt going through the loops is good enough. But if you're just trying to get started, you're not looking into getting a two-piece belt, we can always do the long route. This is what I consider the long route. It will be using something like my core belt here, which is a EDC belt. It's nice, stiff, and sturdy. And what I will have to do is, as I put it through my belt loops on my pants, I am going to have to slip through your belt keepers and so on, to where every time the belt comes off, all of the gear must come off with it. That's okay, especially for getting yourself started in competition. You can use things like your standard Safariland QLS. This is an ALS holster from Safariland with the QLS fork. If I can get it apart there. So that is a very popular and very commonly used holster. You can get a lot of these at Bass Pro, at your local gun store. This one is a SIG 320 holster that seems to fit half the guns I own. The Safariland QLS clip there can be put on something like this, a drop leg, a medium drop leg. So that would be a holster and a belt to get yourself started. Something simple, you can use your standard Blackhawk mag carriers that you can get, again, at your local gun shop, Bass Pro, or otherwise. Anything that will securely hold your magazines while you are running around a stage, maybe forward, backwards, side to side. Losing your magazines in the middle of a course isn't going to help you when it's time to reload. So, moving past that, you can use your standard EDC gear. As you can see here, here is a belt-looped Kydex 2011 holster and an S-Tac, ESS-Tac, dual mag pouch here. So these are IDPA more used type gear, but it is absolutely okay for the USPSA. Moving on to a little bit more in-depth belt systems. You can go into your Double Alpha, your Ghost, your CR Speed mag carriers, where you start to get a little bit of adjustability, where you can cant them one way or another. They all have their little bits of adjustment. This is a Double Alpha XIP. This is one of my favorites as far as sleeved mag carriers go. The Ghost, also awesome. These are very, very affordable. So if you're trying to get something a little bit more than your standard mag carriers and you want a little bit of adjustment to start building up your belt setup, I highly recommend going with the Ghost to start off. They work great. They're very universal. They work with a lot of different styles and different platforms. So to your benefit there, especially if you don't know what firearm you're going to be using full time yet. As far as duty gear usage goes, you can always use your standard duty holster. It's really not that much different than what a Safariland is going to be, as that's a level 2. This is a level 1/2, just like my speed ones here I'll show you in a minute, that has a lock. This is a Strike 80 holster. This is one of my duty holsters. I love this thing, works great, especially for night matches. It does not hurt to have something that has light bearing capabilities in it, for in case that random fun night match comes about. But past that, in your Safariland QLS, you can use the G code quick release as well. That duty stuff will work. The only thing I do have to point out is it is in the USPSA rule book that you pretty much can't wear and use like hard camo like this. You can get away with stuff like this. It's no big deal. It's really more so your attire. But I would recommend staying away from multicam belts and anything that looks military related, unless you are currently serving and or with a department. Moving on to the real speed gear. The most popular belt that I have seen out there is also Double Alpha, like the one I showed you that is mine in the beginning, but it is the Double Alpha. As you can see here, that is a That's a belt. That is the double alpha standard belt that a lot of people start off with. It is a phenomenal belt. It's something like this. Because of the two belt system, you can set everything up on like you see here and just leave it there. That way your gear never has to be tampered with. You don't have to find new index points. And as you continue to grow in skill, you don't have to make these tiny adjustments to your gear all the time, especially if you're using it every day. But that's the big thing that you will really notice with your real competition belts is they are very sturdy. Even a good EDC belt is still bendy in comparison. And then even further than that, my favorite EDC belt, which is the Constantine carry belt, the whole end of it's like that. But this is got a metal bar in it to a point to where that being across the front works great. So, speaking of that, you can shoot appendix inner waistband in the USPSA. Now keep in mind, check your range rules first because there are particular ranges that do not allow it even though it is allowed in the USPSA rulebook. Range policy will always come first. But aside from that, Hunter Constantine does a lot of events at major matches that basically puts out a bounty for the guys wearing his inner belt and running from inner waistband to where there's a cash prize for the highest placing guy running from inner waistband using one of his belts. So that is also a thing, right? You don't have to go right up to all of this. If you have a good EDC belt, you are good and efficient inner waistband and your range allows it, you can get started simply with an inner waistband rig and a carrier or even mags in your pocket. I have seen that before as well. Inner waistband holster and magazines coming out of the pocket, and I watched a guy still place top 10 at a local doing that. So to each their own. Getting back to the speed stuff now, I want to talk a little bit about the more popular holsters on the market that kind of everybody uses. The number one most popular one out there is going to be your GXs. Here, your GXs by GX Products. He makes some of the best competition holsters out there. They do have locking levers. And these locking levers are so that when you are moving around the range, your gun doesn't get hooked with somebody else's and comes out. You don't use these at the start of a stage. You're really only using them for security while not shooting. But the GX, he makes them in a speed cut like you can see here, and the non-speed cut like there. These are very phenomenal holsters. You'd have to use one to really understand the feel and difference, but they are phenomenal and they really do stand above the rest when it comes to Kydex holsters. Next to that, I would say the Big Dog Steel Carnivore is getting more and more popular as time goes on. It does have a lock on the side, and it is, again, just like the GX here, a true speed holster. You also get the retention adjustment here as well. This is for my Dan Wesson DWX, and I hate that it's not on my belt right now. But right now, as I'll get into, I have a holster that holds multiple of my competition guns. So as of right now, I'm using one that works for them all until I set some new belts up. I've got what I have on here, which is a Ghost. And those are the only three major speed holsters that I'm really going to talk about. Now, you do have your open holsters and so on that are just trigger guard locks. But if you are new to USPSA, I'm not going to get into those because I'm not going to recommend those until you are a little bit farther along in skill, and or if you would like to, feel free to do that research on your own. And if that's something that you're interested in, just make sure you put some good dry reps on it before you go out there, because I have seen guys drop guns off them before, because once you look into them, you'll understand why. But right here, I have a Ghost Hydra P. This holds both my Shadows, Tac Sports, and DWX all in one. I use a Henning T1000 hanger that has more adjustment than any other hanger on the market. One that you could use, per my previous talks, is something like the Boss hanger. The Boss hanger here is very popular. This is what I kind of started with, was one of these. Has a little thigh pad and everything, but you don't get as much adjustment as you can see you're able to get there. Past that, I also have a magnet on the front for unloaded starts and or for table start. It's a nice thing to have on your belt. It'll benefit you a lot less often than you imagine, but it is nice to have when you do need it. I use kind of a much more advanced style of mag carriers, which are the Henning T900s. They are full-on magnetic mag pouches. The bigger guys I see, when they have more mass to them, they tend to knock them off running around. Thinner guys like myself, we don't seem to have as much of a problem with them. So I know some guys really don't care for these, but I absolutely love them. I put a lot of work and time on them. The last thing I want to make sure I cover here on my belt is what you're looking at here. I know this looks funky, right? Well, it's called a Lynx belt. Every single one of these squares is an individual link that I can knock in or knock out. If I break one, I can replace it completely. If I gain weight, I can add another link to it. If I lose weight, I can take one away. And I also added this ratchet system here as well that is also sold by Double Alpha. And it keeps my belt really nice and secure at all times, no matter how fast I am running around. So that would be your more advanced belt setup there. You also have things like the Dominate Defense out there, which I hear is the most comfortable belt on the market. That's the next one that I'm going to give a try myself. But between Double Alpha, Dominate Defense, you can go to Google Rebus. There is so much out there, but you can really get lost in it all. So again, you can start with just a simple inner waistband run, just a core or a next belt with your gear put through the loops, or you can get into these two belt systems, which is better for the long run, and really get a good down pat setup that works good for you. As you can tell, the gear adds up. When you first start out, you're wondering how you're ever going to have enough. Fast forward 2-3 years and you're wondering how you got so much. That's really kind of how it goes. Constantly trying out different gear and seeing what works best for you is the best thing to do. But at the same time, one could argue the best thing to do is just take what you have and make the best of it. So there's something to be said about both of those things there, right? Out of the two, I would say take what you have and make the best out of it. If you get really, really good with what you have, and it comes to a point to where you don't think you can really advance from there, or you might need a little bit more of an angle here or there to gain a 0.1, 0.2 seconds, then yeah, start investigating into, canted mag carriers, different holsters, whatever's going to float your boat. But although a lot of this is really fancy, the reality is, as long as you have good, safe gun handling skills, a holster, and a mag carrier, and a good attitude, you can go out and get a USPSA done and have a blast. So don't think too hard about all this, but if you guys have any questions at all, I could go on with this stuff for hours on hours. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what more you'd like for me to elaborate on, talk about. Soon here, I'm also going to go into my IDPA belt setup, my multi-gun setup, and so on, as well as my EDC, because that never hurts, right? So, thanks guys for tuning in. Hope you got something from this today, and I will see you guys next time.